Hello, this is Tony the Technician. Today I'm going to teach you how to do a water pump impeller on a late 90s, early 2000s Johnson Evinrude 15 horse 4-stroke outboard. This particular model is a long shaft, so there could be a few different procedures between the short shaft and the long shaft, which most of those being this midsection right here. This particular motor is a 2001 15 horse Evinrude 4-stroke. This is the generation of 4-stroke Evinrude that was made by OMC, not Suzuki. To start, you're going to unbolt all 6 of these bolts, 3 on each side. These bolts are 3/8 bolts. They can either be accessed with a ratchet, 1/4 inch size, or a 3/8 wrench. On a short shaft model, once the 6 bolts are disconnected, you would access your shift linkage, which will be about here on a short shaft outboard. With this being a long shaft and having the adapter plate in it, you're going to have to do the other 6 bolts at the top of the section. This will expose our shift shaft linkage on this model. With these upper bolts, they are the same size as the lower bolts. The 3/8 heads, they all look the same, so when you're putting them in your bolt bucket, don't feel bad about mixing them. These are much more difficult to get out, as you have to use a wrench for the whole part of it. Word of caution, once you get to the last bolt, be prepared to support the lower unit from falling, as this bolt is the only thing that holds it in other than the shift shaft, which may not be securely connected given whoever has done the previous water pump. Apparently on this model of Johnson Evinrude, the 9.9 4-stroke and the 15 horse 4-stroke, the shift shaft linkage is not down on the lower end like most typical Johnson Evinrudes. It's under the cowling, up at the very front of the engine. You'll see this shaft come through with this black fitting on it. You'll see a C-clip right here. You'll need a pick to stick in there, hook onto the C-clip and pull. With any luck, you will be able to find the C-clip afterwards. This is what the C-clip looks like. Another suggestion I would give you is before you start tinkering with the C-clip, put a dab of grease on it, on the outer part of the C, before you start using the pick on it. This way, if you cannot control where it goes, it will most likely stick to something before it falls deep into the shrouds. Also on these 15 and 9.9 4-strokes, if it does fall into the shroud, this right here, you can remove the shrouds. They use a Torx head on multiple spots around the cowling. On this particular motor, apparently quite a few of them are missing. Up by the latch assembly, they use a 3/8 bolt, and same at the front of the cowling. Now the fun part. Retilt your engine up. This way you can remove your lower unit. With the engine tilted up and that C-clip disconnected, you are going to have to pull the shaft off this pin and at the same time hold the lower unit. I will try to capture this on video, but it's not going to be easy. With the lower unit in a secure place, my secure place being between a tailgate and the bed of the 2500 HD. If you have a long shaft model, remove the adapter plate, and please note which way you had the upper bolts. Don't put it on upside down. That is your water pump. To remove the water pump housing, you'll need a 7/16 socket. As long as you don't have any corrosion issues, they do come out fairly easy. Once they're broken free, they normally just spin free. Remove all 4 of these. With all 4 bolts removed, just pull up on the housing. It will slide directly over the shaft. And now you can inspect your water pump impeller. This impeller is clearly shot. There's pieces of it everywhere. And there, that's the keyway. You have to save your keyway right there. This impeller is from this little 15 horse 4-stroke. This motor is new to me. I buy them, I fix them, I sell them. This one was clearly ran without water at some point in its life, as you can see the melt on it. Before reassembly, it's always a good idea to clean all the surfaces of old debris or a little bit of corrosion, whatever is built up over the years. I use just a wire brush or a little bit of emery cloth. If it's not real bad, I'll just use some steel wool. This one being a little bit worse than most, I'm just going to use a brass wire brush, and I'll get back to you once it's all done. With your surfaces as clean as you'd like to get them, it is now time to install your impeller. This is the Sierra number for the 9.9 and 15 horse 4-stroke Johnson Evinrude made by OMC. We will now apply a sealant below the wear plate with a small thin layer of black Permatex applied over the area. You are now ready to set your wear plate down on the shaft. The Permatex can be purchased at your average auto parts store. In the gasket making section, it'll just be black Permatex or RTV. It's relatively cheap. This is recommended, at least by me. I'm a certified technician. Just because of the fact that exhaust can come from this chamber through this area and into the water pickup area and get sucked up into the water pump housing instead of water. Then you have yourself an overheat and possibly a dead engine. This is how your wear plate will look when it's back on the housing. With a small dab of black Permatex on the flat part of the drive shaft, place your keyway on there. You are now ready to slide your water pump impeller back down the shaft. In this water pump impeller, you can see the keyway groove. With the water pump slid down and the keyway in the water pump, you are now ready to place your housing back on over the water pump. With the lower unit either in forward or reverse, to slide the impeller into the housing, you will need to turn the prop shaft. That way the drive shaft will spin, and it will spin the water pump impeller into the housing as you push down on that. Once the housing is over the impeller, it is now time to just snug up all four of these bolts. Do not fully tighten them at this point. Once all your bolts are snugged, it is time to fully tighten them. You will have to spin the prop and tighten these fully at the same time. This way you can ensure that the water pump impeller is not bound between the housing and the lower plate. Start with this front bolt, front port, then rear starboard, then front starboard, and then lastly rear port. At this point, people with long shaft outboards can now reassemble the lower 6 bolts. Now before installing the lower unit back on, I suggest greasing the splines of the upper drive shaft. I also suggest greasing up the water tube. All this does is make it far easier for all the rubbers to go together and for you to get your drive shaft back up into the housing or the bottom of the power head. Again, now this is where the video game taping gets hard. Installing the lower unit and trying to hook up the shift shaft and take a video at the same time. What I suggest is getting the lower unit up and close and then just start one bolt if possible. This way you can then be free of holding the weight of the lower unit and then focus on getting the shift shaft hooked up correctly. we go. One bolt is now started on the lower unit. The shift shaft is back up in our upper housing. Slide that onto its peg. And there's no way I'll be able to show you how to do it, but you need to slide that C-clip on that we took off earlier. One thing you can do, because they are a pain in the ass to put back on, is tie a small diameter or poundage monofilament fishing line onto the inside part of the C-clip. This way, if you drop it while installing it, it will not fall very far, and you will be able to retrieve it just by pulling the monofilament line. It should be easy enough to cut afterwards after it is installed. Another tip when installing this lower unit: the last ½ inch you will have to, when installing the lower unit up, the last ½ inch you are going to have to turn the prop either direction. This will turn the drive shaft, which will make the splines line up at the base of the power head. Then the lower unit should slide all the way up, and then you can put your bolt in. Go ahead and tighten that first bolt all the way down, then proceed by putting the other 5 in. Alright, at this point, once all your bolts are reconnected, shift is reattached properly, you are now ready to start your outboard and test if your water pump impeller and shifting are all correct still. Hills are not always 100% the best way to see if your outboard is pumping water. Water coming out directly from the center of the prop is also a very good indicator. This water cannot get through the lower unit and come straight out the rear end of the prop. It has to travel up the outboard, through the power head, and then back down through the exhaust. So that is a clear indicator that the outboard is pumping well. Test your shift. Forward, neutral, reverse. Congratulations, you just completed the 9.9 or 15 horse OMC Johnson Evinrude 4-stroke outboard water pump. This has been Tony the Tech. Thank you for watching my educational video on outboard repair. For more videos, please follow or subscribe or like my page. Thank you.